Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel Kono Pro. In this video, we're going to be adding a little cabinet to the bottom of this stair landing. You can call it a built-in, but we're basically taking a prefabricated base cabinet that we purchased from Home Depot, and we're going to be installing it right here below this landing. So if this is something you're interested in, this is a cool video for you. Stay tuned. So now what we're doing is we measured out our opening, and then we're going to cut it open to basically do some exploratory work to see what's basically below this landing and to make sure the framing is good and to see what we have to do as far as making the framing better so that it can perform properly for us throughout the lifespan of this all being here. Basically, when you install a cabinet below stair landing like this, you don't want a lot of bounce in your landing because then it'll put pressure onto the cabinet. Okay, so now we're opening it up and we're checking it out. And it's just standard framing. But this landing was built basically after the fact. It was built years and years ago by somebody else. And they built it basically on top of the tile. And then they just slammed it all against the existing drywall, which you can see in there. So once I have the opening cut open and I can see that, okay, that this is going to work out. Now I'm measuring for my cabinet size and I'm giving it about a 1/4 inch play on each side. And then I'm measuring what my cabinet size is going to be, center of that space. And then I'm cutting that out. Okay, and that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm using a Sawzall with a wood cutting blade. And we're going to cut out the drywall, and that's the opening. Now we're going to go in here and really see what's going on. We're going to inspect the framing and make sure it's all good. So if you see here, you see that double joist right there? That's good for that outer joist, and it's carrying that load for the wall, and that's good. But look at that back ledger. It's just nailed through the existing drywall and into the framing, which is okay, but we're going to make it a little better. So what we're going to do, and I didn't shoot a video of it, but basically I doubled up every single one of those joists. We just threw two 2x4s, sistered up a 2x4 in between each one of those joists in that landing flooring, basically. Okay, so now we're going to cut this framing out, and then we're going to bring the 2x4 over, and it'll basically be our trimmer for our cabinets. So we're going to cut those 2x4s out of there, and then we're going to cut some new 2x4s. See, I was seeing if it would fit in there, but it's just a little too short. So I'm going to go ahead and cut an actual 2x4 the size that I need, and we're going to put it in there. Then now that's going to be my new trimmer for my opening. And I'm making sure it's level. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Once we have that framing done, and then we're also going to cut out that bottom plate. Boom, done. So now we're going to show you what the framing looks like on the interior as far as what we did. Okay, we went through and we built even a wall in the back, so that way it gives it a little bit more support, as you can see in there. And we doubled up some of the studs in there. We sistered up all the studs on the landing framing. And then we also threw in that wall. And that's, you see how we doubled up all these studs? Now it's a much better system. And then we also threw some 4-inch screws into the actual framing through that ledger, through the drywall and into the framing. So that locked it in solid. So now that we did that, that was to keep the bounce. You want to have someone go up there and basically jump on the landing and see if there's bounce in that landing. And if there's minimal bounce in the landing, then you're good to go. And also the cabinet is going to be, about a 1/4 inch away from the top framing. So it's actually not going to touch the top of the cabinet, the framing, which is good. So you don't really want to have pressure going down onto the cabinet. If that's the case, then you can cut your toe cake out of there and you can bring the cabinet down just a little bit lower. But it worked out perfect. We still had about a 1/2 inch play. But here, as you can see, the floor is unlevel and then the wall's level. So when you throw the cabinet in there, you can see there's a gap. So we're going to have to level that out. We're going to level that out using shims. So we're going to basically take some shims and we're going to place it on the front and the bottom below the toe cake, and we're going to push everything back level. Okay, you can do this two ways. You can make it to where your drywall is flush with the cabinet, or the cabinet is pronounced and comes out. So the face of the cabinet actually sits on the outside of the drywall edge. That's the way I like to do it. It gives a little bit more detail, and I feel like it's just easier to finish off your edges. Absolutely. If you do it the other way, then you're gonna wanna put some kind of molding around the trim where the face of the cabinet meets the drywall. Okay, and then also we're gonna wanna level it right to left. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring it back to where it's flush with the drywall, and that's what we want, so that reveal looks nice. And then we're going to go ahead and level it off to make sure it's level on each side. On the left side, we might have to put 2 shims. On the right side, we might have to put 1 shim. So that's how you do that to basically make sure it's level. And you want to get it as level as you can. And then once that's done, then we're going to use a countersink and some screws, and we're going to screw in to the framing on each side of the cabinet, on the right and the left sides of the cabinet. Okay, we're going to countersink with the pilot into the framing. It's basically into the cabinet right behind the face frame, and then that's going to screw into the framing. Okay, this cabinet has 1/2 inch walls basically on the side of the box, so that's enough meat to go ahead and screw through that cabinet side into the framing, and it'll lock it in tight. And then also we're going to patch everything with drywall around the edge, plaster everything, and then we're going to also throw a piece of hemlock along the bottom of that of the toe kick to bring that out flush with the face frame as well, so it all looks like it's basically all one piece flush all the way down. Okay, so now that we have it all leveled, we're going through and making sure everything's good. We're checking this side for any kind of backing that it needs. See, what I like to do is put a shim if the framing is just a little bit too far away from where I'm going to be screwing into the cabinet. You don't want to screw in and then pull that side of the cabinet. The actual box of the cabinet will start to pull away from the face frame and pull into the framing. You don't want to do that. So if it's a little bit too close to the framing but not close enough to where it won't make a good connection when you screw it in, then you can throw some shims right in between each side, so that way when you throw your screw in, it's going to lock it down and it'll be a good connection to the actual framing on the side. Okay, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shims, and everything's locked in and screwed in, and it's not going to basically fall down that gap. It's not going to like sink in if you put too much weight in there, but still, regardless, I don't like to take that chance. So what I do is I take some shims and I lay them on top of each other, and then I lay those underneath the cabinet to where that toe kick is basically has a shim along the perimeter of it going down. A lot of people just cut the shims and just leave them sitting underneath the toe kick. That's fine too. So now I'm going to take a piece of this hemlock, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it. You can use hemlock, you can use pine, you can use whatever you want. You can even throw a piece of drywall there instead of wood. But I like to use wood for areas that are high kick areas, as I would call them. If someone walks up to this landing, then the toe of their shoe might hit the bottom of that cabinet. So I like to put wood there. And we're also going to put baseboard too. But right now what I just did is threw some 2x4 filler pieces, and I just basically put them in there until they met the face frame, and then that's where I nailed my piece of hemlock to. And once that's done, I'm going to throw a piece of baseboard down, and then it's going to finish it all off. And then you can throw the cabinet doors on there, put the shelf in there in the drawer, plaster around the edges, prime, paint everything, stain, whatever you want. And this cabinet will come out really nice, and it'll basically be a built-in. That's a prefabricated cabinet that we got from our local hardware store, and then we just installed it underneath this landing. And it gives you extra storage space, it gives you extra, just detail to the room, and it's a really nice little space. And definitely is a fun little project. If you like this video, remember to subscribe and like. And if you'd like to click on the thanks and give us a thanks, that would be great. Kono Pro out.